When most people think of Gulf War restrictions, they picture uniform regulations or communications blackout rules. But Desert Storm had its own catalogue of forbidden gear, items troops wanted, needed, or quietly used anyway, but were officially banned. Some of these were prohibited to maintain discipline, others because they posed diplomatic risks, and others because they were dangerous in the wrong hands. The surprising part? Several of these items are still banned for US service members today, more than 3 decades later. Let's break down 7 of the most significant and misunderstood restricted items from the 1990 to 91 Gulf War. Desert Storm was the first major US conflict fought under a unified CENTCOM policy banning unofficial weapons on the battlefield. Troops were explicitly forbidden from carrying personal pistols from home, revolvers, backup sidearms, non-standard rifles, captured enemy weapons. The reason wasn't bureaucratic pettiness. It came down to logistics. Unofficial firearms simply couldn't be properly supplied with ammunition, couldn't be repaired by unit armourers, risked friendly fire confusion, and, well, they violated NATO and coalition standards. Officers were instructed to confiscate any non-issued weapon on site. Even today, service members are banned from carrying personal firearms in active combat zones. That didn't stop a few troops from smuggling in a private handgun just in case. But when discovered, punishment was immediate. Military night vision goggles were, tightly controlled, expensive, and in pretty short supply. Some troops actually tried to bring early civilian-grade night vision devices into the theatre. These were, cheap surplus scopes and monoculars. CENTCOM banned them for 3 reasons. First, they were inferior and, quite frankly, often malfunctioned. Second, they could compromise night operations due to poor light discipline. And third, they created intelligence security concerns if lost. Military-issued night observation devices were calibrated, encrypted, and, protected. Civilian models were a liability, and honestly, the ban still exists today. Now, this one really surprises modern audiences. Back in 1990, GPS was still a young and rather sensitive technology, reserved almost exclusively for military use. The Pentagon, you see, did not want troops bringing along civilian navigation units, handheld position trackers, or even modified aviation GPS devices. At that time, consumer GPS accuracy was intentionally degraded by the United States government under something called selective availability. Even worse, transmitting units could risk electronic detection by Iraqi forces, who were equipped with Soviet-made signal trackers. The rule still stands. Modern service members simply cannot bring personal navigation devices into many deployments, even today. Now, before smartphones were everywhere, troops actually relied on things like camcorders, film cameras, portable tape recorders, and those early digital cameras. It was a very different era, CENTCOM ended up banning these items mainly for operational security reasons. I mean, images showing troop movements, equipment, or even destroyed targets could easily compromise entire missions. Back during Desert Storm, you'd sometimes see leaked photos showing up in foreign media within just a few days. Basically, anything capable of recording, whether audio or visual, needed written approval, and, well, violations carried some pretty serious punishment. Today, the same rule exists, but, it's been expanded to include things like phones, GoPros, and even drones. During Desert Storm, supply chain pressures and, honestly, chemical warfare fears made soldiers desperate for better protection. Some tried to bring their own: gas masks, flak vests, chemical gloves, ballistic plates, respirators. All of them were banned. The military needed uniformity. If a mask leaked, a filter failed, or a vest didn't meet standards, well, the casualty was preventable, and the liability was on the military. Worse still, non-standard gear made mass evacuations and replacements harder. The rule remains as strict today as it was in 1991. Many troops, especially Marines and Army infantry, wanted to bring personal knives such as large fixed blades, hunting knives, custom fighting knives, machetes and privately bought bayonets. CENTCOM forbade them unless they met regulation length and purpose. The military worried about excessive lethality, escalation with civilians, violations of international law, improper use and, well, confusion with captured weapons. Troops were issued standard bayonets, Leatherman-style tools and utility blades. Anything else was considered contraband. The ban, especially on large personal fighting knives, still exists today, with strict length and function rules. One of the oldest bans in United States military history became especially important in Desert Storm. Troops were forbidden from keeping captured enemy equipment. This included, firearms, helmets, uniforms, flags, bayonets, currency, vehicle parts, military documents, and even personal items from enemy soldiers. The reason was, well, both political and legal. Desert Storm was a multinational coalition operating under United Nations authority. The United States needed to avoid the appearance of looting or exploitation. Additionally, many captured items, especially Iraqi AKs, were often unsafe, rusted, or honestly modified. This ban is still in effect today, tied to international law and the law of armed conflict. These restrictions weren't random. They reflected a shift in United States doctrine toward, well, tighter coalition standards. Better operational security. Prevention of battlefield confusion remains crucial even today. And, well, modernization of logistics is another reason these bans continue to hold significance. Protection of diplomatic credibility. Desert Storm proved just how fast a conflict could become global news. Every photo, every piece of gear, every over-eager souvenir hunter, it all had consequences. And because the Gulf War shaped modern United States military strategy, the rules have endured. Troops today deploy with fewer personal freedoms than soldiers in earlier wars, but for good reason. The battlefield is now digital, public, and scrutinized in real time. Many of the bans born in 1990 are still written into the rulebooks of 2025.